welcome to the Boulder Bookstore YouTube channel. My name is Liesl and I am the children's buyer here at the Boulder Bookstore. It's summertime here at the bookstore. It's super hot and my birthday is on August 1st, so I thought I'd share with you some of my favorite books from when I was a kid, and they're actually still in print, so kind of a trip down memory lane. All these books most of the books I have read either as a kid or as an adult, and actually in most cases both, because I've reread them many times. The first book that I remember reading and loving and just taking it into my heart and crying and reading it over and over and over again for that emotional sort of release of nobody likes me, everybody hates me, but I've got dragons. So the book is Dragonsinger. This is Anne McCaffrey. This is actually my original edition that I had that first came out in 1977. You can see the lovely cover, and I am delighted to announce that they have updated the cover, but it is still in print. In fact, when this edition came out, my own daughter was about 11. I gave this to her, and she has also done the same exact thing. You just read it over and over again. I think she even has an audio version which she listens to time and time again. The premise is that there's a colony on a planet called Pern, and Pern is beset by something called thread, which there's a comet that goes by and drops these poisonous spores down on the planet. And the colonists have genetically re-engineered something called fire lizards back up to the size of dragons, so that they chew brimstone and then they fight thread with fire and dragons. And you have a telepathic connection to the dragons. So that's sort of happening in the big politic world of the adults and stuff. Melanie's story takes place in a little tiny village called Half Circle Seahold, and she's the youngest daughter of like 13 or something like that, and she wants to be a musician. Well, girls, it's very feudal, so girls are not allowed to be harpers and musicians. So she's sort of practicing in secret, and her parents find out and punish her, so she runs away. Of course, when she runs away, she gets caught out by this thread, so she has to jump into a cave where she discovers the original fire lizards. Not the original, but fire lizards hadn't been seen in a very long time. They thought that they were a mythology, because a lot of the knowledge of the original colonists was lost. So that's a long explanation, but basically she runs away, discovers fire lizards, and then she gets rescued and brought to Harper Hall and becomes a musician. Why do I keep saying magician? Musician after all, but she's got all these fire lizards, and it's just so wonderful. It's just so great, because it's, like I said, everybody hates me, but I've got fire lizards. Nanner, nanner, he could poo. Fabulous. I'm just so happy that they've sort of updated it, because this one is definitely falling apart. I was thinking to myself as I was looking for my books, somebody, when they do an estate sale for me, they're gonna possibly be excited because I'm a bookseller, so they probably think I have like first editions and signed and things like that, which I do. But mostly my bookshelf exists of really old mass markets that have been read time and time again. So, speaking of aged mass markets, another one of my favorite series was, it still is, I'm rereading this right now actually, I'm on chapter 4, The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart. This is the newer modern edition because my old mass market was actually covered in duct tape and everything, so I was forced to actually get a new one. So here it is. The Crystal Cave, The Hollow Hills and the Last Enchantment by Mary Stewart, and The Wicked Days, the last one, tell the story of King Arthur, but it starts with Merlin's story as a young boy. So it's all told from Merlin's point of view as he's reflecting back on it when he's locked in the cave by Naomi. And So he's reflecting back on his childhood and the legends that have been born around it, and how they're a little bit overinflated because he doesn't quite remember them that way. The writing in it is just brilliant. It's just really, really great. You know, there are certain phrases that I sort of, and sentences that I sort of trip on, and I actually even repeat them to myself. There's this one scene where he's laying in a hippocaust, which is a castle, and there's a big chimney, and he's laying down so he can see the sky, Merlin that is. And he says he watches the moon pass overhead and the little star that dogs her. And so it's funny because when I do see the moon and the little star that dogs her, I think of that phrase all the time. That's how often I've read this book. When I was looking up like the publication dates and things like that, I realized that this was first published in 1970, which is a little bit before I was born, or a little bit after I was born. But it's fun to think about in 1968 that maybe Mary Stuart was writing it the year I was born. Okay. Another series that I absolutely adore and have reread, and I only discovered it as an adult. It is a middle grade or teen YA it's kind of in that gap of middle grade. It's quite slightly older than 12, but you know, not 14 and up. Is The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. It is just a delightful series called The Queen's Thief. This is the first one. It has sort of a vaguely Greek mythology sort of feel to it, although she's made it up, but those are definitely like the landscape, the way she describes it, the interaction between the people and their gods is very intimate, like I would imagine the Greeks were, because their gods are just there, they're part of their life. Athena did this, blah blah blah. So they do interweave the mythology of this world into the stories, so you get a very good sense of what their religion is and their society and their interactions. A lot of politics. Jen, which is short for Eugenides, by the way. Again, kind of got that Greek feeling. Is a thief, and he is in prison because he's a thief and he actually got caught. And one of the magus, who is the king's scholar, needs something stolen in another land, and so he takes Eugenides out of prison in order to force him to steal this thing. Otherwise, he's going to go back in prison and get executed. So that's their adventure. It's a traveling one. So this is the story of Eugenides stealing the object and their travels along the way. And again, they have updated the cover. So that's nice. And there are like 6 in the series, or 4. Can't remember, because they just released one this past year. I can't remember what number that is. But really, really great. One of my favorite authors when I was a teenager and sort of in my early 20s is Sherry Tepper. This again is the ancient edition that I have called King's Blood 4. The modern one is actually a bind-up of this trilogy, so you just get one book instead of 3 little tiny ones that were all like $2.50 each when I bought them. In this world, Sherry Tepper sort of almost has, the whole series is called the True Game series, and so all the characters in it are part of a type. So there's shapeshifters, there's kings, there's pawns, so it's kind of like a chess game or a war game of some sort, and all the archetypes, I guess for lack of a better word, are playing certain roles, and it's very defined and stuff, until our hero Peter kind of starts to break the mold and question why are they still playing this game when people are dying and there's no reason for the game, like it doesn't make any sense. Really great, really fun. It was wonderful to explore. Peter's a shapeshifter, but he doesn't know how to shapeshift yet, so that's part of the whole process. Really great. True Game series by Sherry Tepper. Another one of my favorites that they've just updated the cover on, and I'm so excited, is the Chrestomanci series. This is, again, is another one that I was sort of read older than the age it's actually meant for. It's, again, sort of that bridge between slightly over 12 but younger than 14, kind of in that area. It could be read up or read down. Diana Wynne Jones is no longer with us, but she's like the master of fantasy for this age group when she was writing. And most of her books are actually still in print. You might be familiar actually with Howl's Moving Castle, which is also Diana Wynne Jones. I think that's her most favorite one. So she has kind of a world, and it's a multiverse, which I think is kind of stunning when she thought of it, because it was the first time, in my knowledge, that the multiverse is sort of explored, because these came out in the 70s, maybe even earlier than that. Let's see. Of course I cannot read it. This one says 77, so I think that she'd been writing for a long time, but to explore the multiverse. But she explores it with magic, not physics. So Christopher Chrestomanci is the Chrestomanci, and he's actually responsible for keeping the multiverse's worlds separate so that they don't intersect with one another and so they don't collapse. And these are his tales of sort of doing that. There are 3 volumes in the new one. I think there were only 2 in this one because there are actually 4 stories, and there are only 2 stories in this one. So they've kind of changed it up a little bit. Last book. This one, this author, it's really the author. So this is my old edition, the first one that I ever read by her, Elizabeth George, For the Sake of Elena. And I don't think she actually needs that much introduction. I just really like her writing. I do like they have new cover treatments, which is really nice. When everything's shut down and we're all sort of flopping around like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do in that sort of mild panic? First, of course, I reread The Thief. Then I read these. And then I read every single Elizabeth George. I even had to go out and complete my collection at the used bookstore because we didn't have this copy in hand. And everything was shut, so I ordered it. I found it at the used bookstore to support my local used bookstore. And I don't know what else to say, but thank you so much! And a happy birthday to me!